Chapter 7. A New Blueprint. Mars didn't change everything overnight. It wasn't a grand transformation, but a quiet evolution, like a building settling into its foundation. Jamie and Casper learned that love and vows was still about choices, still about showing up in the small moments. Morning coffee brewed just right, late night talks about dreams too big for sleep, laughter spilling across kitchen tiles when recipes went wrong. They travelled, of course, not as two people chasing horizons, but as partners collecting memories to stitch into the fabric of their life. Paris in spring, where Jamie sketched bridges while Casper captured lovers framed by rain-streaked glass. Kyoto in autumn, where they wandered through crimson gardens and whispered promises under lantern light. And home, always home, where the rooftop remained their compass, their quiet sanctuary above the hum of the city. But the biggest journey began one rainy afternoon, 3 years into their marriage. Jamie was curled on the sofa, a book open but unread, when Casper dropped beside him, damp from the drizzle, eyes bright with something Jamie hadn't seen before: certainty. "I met someone today," Casper said softly, "at the centre." Jamie looked up, heart quickening. "Someone?" "A little girl," Casper murmured, voice trembling at the edges. 3 months old, dark curls, eyes like midnight. They said she needs a family. Jimmy's breath caught. They had talked about this late at night, in whispers, imagining what it would feel like to share their love beyond themselves. But imagining was different from reality. Reality was here, in Casper's voice, in the way his hand shook as if holding something fragile and infinite. "Her name's Luna," Casper added, almost reverent. "Jimmy, I think she's ours." Silence stretched, filled with the hum of rain and the weight of possibility. Jimmy closed the book, reached for Casper's hand, and smiled. A slow, certain curve. "Then let's bring her home." Adoption wasn't a single moment. It was 1,000 steps, forms and interviews, waiting and wandering. But when they finally carried Luna through the front door, everything shifted. The house that had been theirs became something more. A home alive with laughter and lullabies, with toys scattered like confetti, and walls that echoed with tiny giggles. They learned new rhythms: midnight feedings, early morning walks with the pram, afternoons spent photographing first smiles and sketching nursery designs. The rooftop became a playground of sorts, a place where Maggie's laughter mingled with the wind, where Jamie and Casper stood side by side, marvelling at how love could expand without breaking. Years passed in a blur of milestones: first steps, first words, birthdays strung with fairy lights, and friends who had become family. Alicia and Peter remained constants, their voices filling the house during celebrations, their speeches evolving from wedding toasts to promises of godparent adventures. Through it all, Jamie and Casper kept building, not structures of steel or glass, but a life stitched from moments, messy, fleeting, real. A life where quiet wasn't empty, where chaos was beautiful, and where love, once a season, had become a forever foundation. Chapter 8. Cracks in the Foundation. 8 years had passed since the day Jamie and Casper carried Luna through their front door. She was no longer the tiny bundle they once cradled, but a whirlwind of curiosity and laughter. 8 years old, with dark curls that bounced when she ran, and a smell that could still undo them both. But love, like architecture, wasn't immune to stress. Over time, cracks began to form, not in Luna's world, but in the spaces between Jamie and Casper. It started small, arguments over schedules, over work, over who forgot to buy milk. Then bigger things, Jamie's long hours at the firm, Casper's constant travel for photography exhibitions. Conversations that once flowed like rivers now felt like jagged stones scraping against silence. One evening, the rooftop, once their sanctuary, became the stage for words sharp enough to cut. "You're never here," Jamie said, voice tight, hands gripping the railing as if it could hold them together. "Every time I turn around, you're gone." Casper's jaw clenched. "And when I am here, you're buried in blueprints. Do you even see us anymore?" Jamie flinched. "Don't make this about me." "It's about us," Casper shot back, eyes blazing. "And we're falling apart." The city hummed below, indifferent to the storm above. Luna was asleep inside, unaware of the fault line splitting the world she knew. Weeks turned into months, and the arguments didn't stop. They sharpened. Counselling was tried, promises were made, but the foundation they had built together had shifted too far. One autumn morning, Jimmy sat at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of coffee gone cold, and whispered the words neither had wanted to speak. "I think we need to let go." Casper stood in the doorway, camera strap dangling from his hand like a lifeline he couldn't grasp. His voice was quiet, almost broken. "What about Luna?" Jamie's throat tightened. "She needs stability, and right now, you can't give her that." It wasn't surrender, it was love, twisted and painful, but love all the same. Jamie knew Casper's work allowed more flexibility, more time at home, and Maggie deserved and Luna deserved a world that didn't echo with arguments. The day Jamie packed his things was grey, rain streaking the windows like tears. Luna clung to him, small arms wrapping around his waist. "Will you still come see me?" she whispered, voice trembling. Jimmy knelt, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Always, Luna. Always." Casper stood behind her, eyes hollow but steady, as if holding the weight of two hearts. When Jimmy left, the door closed softly, not with anger, but with the quiet ache of endings. Life didn't stop. It never does. Luna grew, laughter returning slowly to the house. Casper now kept warm with stories and photographs. Jimmy visited often. Birthdays, school plays, quiet weekends where they rebuilt something fragile but necessary. Family, even if it looked different now. And sometimes, late at night, Jimmy would stand on a new rooftop, staring at the city lights, and wonder if some structures weren't meant to last forever, but to teach us how to build again. Chapter 9. Shadows of what was. Time moved on, as it always does. Seasons shifted. Luna grew taller, her laughter filling spaces that once echoed with love. Jimmy and Casper kept their promise. Birthdays, school plays, weekends were Maggie's choice, stitched fragile threads between them. But those threads wove the same fabric as they once wore. They had become polite strangers, bound by a shared heart. Jimmy's flat was quiet, too quiet. He filled it with work, with sketches sprawled across his desk, with music humming low in the background. Sometimes he tried to fill it with people, dates arranged through friends, conversations over wine that felt like rehearsals for a play he no longer believed in. Casper tried too. Cafes with strangers who laughed at his stories, gallery openings where he smiled for photographs that never felt real. He told himself he was moving forward, but every time he framed a shot, he saw Jamie in the lines, in the light, in the spaces between. They were living separate lives, yet every silence carried the weight of what they lost. Jimmy met someone, a kind soul with warm eyes and a love for architecture. They talked about design, about cities, about dreams. But when the conversation turned to love, Jimmy felt the hollow ache of comparison. No one had ever made him feel like chaos could be beautiful the way Casper did. Casper met someone too, a writer who adored his photographs, who spoke in poetry and promises. But when they kissed under a street lamp, Casper closed his eyes and saw a rooftop bathed in amber light, a smile that had undone him years ago. They kept trying, because that's what people do, but every attempt felt like tracing a shadow, close enough to resemble something real, never enough to replace the original. One evening, Jamie stood on his balcony, city lights flickering like distant stars. He thought of Casper, wondered if he was out there, camera in hand, chasing the perfect frame. Wondered if he felt the same emptiness, the same ache that no amount of laughter or company could erase. Across the city, Casper sat in Luna's room, watching her sleep. He scrolled through old photographs, Florence sunsets, Kyoto gardens, rooftops painted in violet dusk. His chest tightened, not with regret, but with the quiet truth. Some loves don't vanish. They linger, like foundations buried deep, even when the structure above has fallen. Alright, I'm not going to be able to make it to chapter 10, so I'm going to have to cut it there. I want to say I apologise for taking so long for this one. School's been busy because I'm actually, well, I'm not grown up enough of like a job or anything, you know, so I have to try and maintain that stuff. But I'm finishing up soon, and I'll be going into my summer break, and hopefully by then I'll be able to do more recordings. And I'm hoping by the time I finish this story, I'm going to start making my own, completely from my head, no AI helping whatsoever. So we'll see where the road takes us on that. So anyway, I would like to say thank you all so much for watching, if anyone is watching anymore, and best of luck to you. God bless.